block each other when they're at the Glenwood intersection for cars turning left or right. If it's a bigger vehicle, they can't even see. Here you can see kids on both sides of Linden inside the gate. This driver was waiting almost a minute to get across the intersection. And this is where the cars are blocking each other. And I think there's a view looking into the gate here where you can see bicyclists are actually on both sides of the Linden Road inside the gate. So if there's some way that, I know it's going to take a long time to make fixes, and even if they did widen the bike lane, I don't think parents would want their 9 and 10, 11-year-olds riding on the bike lane on Middlefield. It's just very dangerous. So the path is good, actually. It's separated by trees, and it protects the kids. There's only 2 points of conflict, which are the James and the Linden gates. So if a crossing guard or a traffic officer for 30 minutes a day could be positioned there to kind of make sure the kids learn correct bike behavior and also help traffic control, that would be an interim measure that would help alleviate some child being struck. Thank you. So now I'll do the slides, which are also in your handout, and you have a CD that you can use to refer back to for. There was another mother who, I think it was probably in December, who almost was hit by a car coming out of Linden. The road was slippery, and she had made most of the crossing, but then was caught. So this is a beautiful gate. I think everybody would admit that this is one of the hallmarks of this community. So it has wrought iron gates on it, though. So I don't know if they work, but that might be another way to just live with the use on the gate. You can see the driver's view coming in or leaving Lindenwood on the right. What it looks like, the gate is well signed. Watch for pedestrians, stop, and even a line in the pavement to stop back here. But if you did take the time, especially at commute time, that kids are coming home, to just stand back there by the tree and kind of watch the drivers coming through, you'll see that they don't really pay attention to those signs. So,
Can I ask a question about that?
sure.
Could you go back up one slide?
Backwards.
Okay, you don't need to. But the question is, when a driver emerges from the gate, is the shrubbery on the side so high that they can't really see the traffic until they pull out pretty far?
It isn't just a shrubbery. There's actually a wall.
But the gate itself.
With the concrete, I mean, with the brick and everything, so you really can't see. So you can't totally fault the drivers, going through Linden Gate. It's just the configuration of that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought a lot about this, and I tried to reach out to parents with kids to see if they had ideas. I did get several. They're in the emails that are attached to your handouts and also provided electronically here on your computer. But I basically summarized path conditions promote unsafe behaviors by the riders. You have uncontrolled crossing at Middlefield, so the kids would never ride southbound with the traffic, because when they get to Glenwood, there's no way to cross it, Middlefield to get into Lindenwood, which a majority of them live there or they commute through. On the west side, you've also got raised curbs from Surrey and another driveway further down. You've got parked cars after school. You've got mud, and when it's wet and it's softer, because cars park there and they make ruts in the road. The path narrows on both sides of Middlefield. And again, you've got kids riding in groups, and they visit with each other. So they're not paying attention, they're distracted. And if they don't have a supervisor, someone riding with them, they're not going to pay attention. And these unsafe behaviors are dangerous. You have skateboarding, little scooter without, not motorized, just a kid on a scooter, and they travel both ways. I've seen high school students skateboarding on the bike lane. Biking against traffic, they bike too fast, they never look when they go across the crosswalk. They just fly. It looks like a driveway in a way. And you can correct these dangerous behaviors if you make sensible improvements. I think a lot of these might be implemented without a long time duration to have it happen, or money. maybe have a volunteer program where, you know, the kids or the parents or, you know, volunteers come out and rake the leaves away from the wall and up to between the trees. It'll be a dissuasion for kids to actually switch over to the bike lane, because they'd have to go through a pile of leaves. It would widen the path, so kids could stay in the path. Ideally, you know, maintain a uniform path width as much as you can. There is asphalt underneath these leaves, so if they were cleared away, you would find this asphalt. It might be in maybe some bad condition in spots, but maybe you can do hard pack, put some fine gravel down or something. I suggested limiting vehicle use during the school commute, maybe mirrors on the gate. Now here you can see what the drivers, you know, on the right or the left, you'd be pulling up from Lindenwood, and you can see they really can't see traffic until they get out into the crosswalk. So maybe mirrors on those posts for the kids to see cars or vice versa. A signage that says walk your bikes, you know, across the crosswalk. Not that kids are gonna do that if they're on their own. How about a bike ped signal? For pedestrians even. I tried walking across that crosswalk a few times, and I almost got hit by a car then because I'm slower than if I'm on a bike. Maybe more training, but again, I think you've done good with training. It's more kids' behavior, their habits. A traffic officer for 30 minutes in the afternoon at this intersection would help achieve two things: calm traffic, help the cars coming out of Glenwood to be able to turn left and right safely, or if the cars from Lindenwood are trying to get across Middlefield, that would help. Traffic officer could also guide kids and maybe tell them, hey, you know, you walk your bikes through this crosswalk, you don't go flying through it. Ideally, a traffic light and a paved road for two-way direction would be what a lot of people would like to have. To reap these benefits and reduce unsafe behaviors for bicyclists, residents, and motors. So we're teaching our children to have safe and responsible bicycling by doing just a little bit of simple measures. For the community, having proactive leadership protecting bicyclists from injury or death, fewer traffic accidents between cars or kids at Linden and along Middlefield, traffic calming, safe crossing and turns for vehicles or pedestrians crossing at Glenwood Avenue in Linden, and increase in bicycle ridership with potential decrease in traffic carpool. A lot of parents will not let their kids ride on Middlefield as it is because they're afraid. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have one. This is a similar problem to that which exists in cities where there's a subterranean garage, or not subterranean, but cars emerging from a very narrow driveway that with limited visibility sideways. And the way that's handled in many garages is that there's a warning signal when a car is emerging, which basically warns pedestrians to watch out.
This would be like a
Both
flashing,
audible and visual. Right?
Yes.
would it be like a flashing
Well,
signal?
usually it's both, or often it's both, and obviously the neighbors here are probably not going to like that a sound that would be audible. But to the extent that that since what we're trying to warn are bicyclists approaching rather than cars, if there were flashers on the pole that was located right there, pointing that way, and frankly, you could. It's close enough that you could have something audible that would be loud enough for a biker to hear and quiet enough for the residents not to.
Kind of like the Chicago airport on the walkway.
Not
You're entering the walkway.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Whatever. Point is that something that actively detects an emerging vehicle to warn the biker, I think is something that could at least mitigate the problem.
It would help. The thing to remember though is these kids, when they're biking, they're probably up to maybe 5 to 10 miles an hour. And by the time they get to that intersection, you know, to Linden, to hit the brakes and slow down for a car, I mean, you saw that little boy that almost got creamed. That car had actually stopped behind the crosswalk. And then his attention turned to the left because he was trying to get onto Middlefield. And meanwhile, this little boy just appeared from nowhere and the truck had to hit his brakes. So there have been accidents on this intersection, and I don't know, it just seems like we have traffic light and the crossing guard at Encinal. And ironically, I've seen motorcycles, police on motorcycles actually parked on the sidewalk as recently as last week at the Encinal light. And really, they need to come like a quarter to a half a mile down the road and sit at the Linden intersection. And, let the kids know, this is not correct behavior. You know better, because you're already walking your bikes across Encinal. And we don't want you hit hurt, and we don't want, cars to have a hard time getting out.
You're not realistically expecting kids to get off their bikes and walk it in front of that gate, right?
What
they're
I
supposed to do.
realistically,
Really?
That's what the law says.
That's the law.
yeah, I think you have to teach children what you expect them to do when they grow up, and you set the pace right now. But if that doesn't seem reasonable, then the other choice would be to have a crossing guard that stops the cars. Okay, kids, come on through the crosswalk.
So, and maybe our police can answer this. The crossing guards are provided by the school, is that correct?
Correct.
So I guess that would be a pitch to make to the school.
Well, actually, I made this, I sent a flyer to the traffic person at the school, and I don't know, I haven't heard any, much back from it. I don't know, is she here? No. So, I'm happy to present there too. I'm just bringing it to your attention since you did make
No,
it possible
this is
to
very
attend.
good. I think it's very useful, and you've made some provocative suggestions.
Well, it's our
in terms of-
children, and a
Yeah.
lot of these kids, they live in Lindenwood,
Yeah.
so they're your children.
Okay, before we go to public comments, are there any more questions from the committee? Okay, do other people from the audience want to make comments? If you could, do they need to step to the microphone, or?
I don't think so. If you can hear me?
Well, it's for the recording, I
Okay.
guess.
Oh. Is that okay? What I was wondering, how about a four-way stop at Glenwood and Middlefield? There's been a lot of accidents there through the years,
A
lots of
four-way
accidents.
stop.
Well, or a stop sign, stop light.
So, well, four-way stop.
Is what I mean, stop signs on the corners.
Creates rear end accidents.
Okay.
And there's a lot of very heavy traffic on
Right.
Millfield. Stoplights cost, for
And-
an intersection like that, probably $250,000, $300,000.
Okay. Because somebody I remember years ago got ran over, I think it was a couple, they were riding their bicycles. Maybe a little after 96, the year of 96, when the man was run over and he died. Okay, there's been tons of accidents on Glenwood and Middlefield. There's always fender benders. And sometimes people get injured. So I came along because I think it's kind of a nice idea, and there are people on bicycles, and there's a lot of accidents right there, that area. But maybe since you put in Encinal, the light down there, you think, but they still go pretty
You
fast.
have to understand, the light at Encinal was actually a three-way project by Atherton, the school district, and then the park. And it took a really long time to
Okay.
make that happen, but they shared the cost
Mhm.
of that, which I think was about $300,000, as I recall.
Maybe a little bit more than that. And it did take several years to get that light put in.
Yeah,
How about speed bumps then?
yeah. Would you like to comment on the traffic issues and the viability of stop signs?
But as far as accidents at that intersection, most of the accidents are actually left-turning vehicles cutting off other cars. So it's somebody turning left in front of oncoming traffic, or trying to get onto Middlefield from Glenwood. They think they can make it, they can't. They go across the intersection and turn left, and they get hit. I don't recall a lot of bicycle collisions there. I do know that the kids in the afternoon, it's not only that intersection, but the kids are actually riding the wrong way on Middlefield Road. They actually are in violation of the vehicle code because they have to ride with traffic, and they're not. But this extends all the way down to Oak Grove too, and they also go through the intersection of Oak Grove the wrong way, in the street or in the bike or in the crosswalk, riding across, and all the way in front of Menlo Atherton High School. I did speak with Gordon about this issue, about maybe putting up some signs or something in the in the dirt area there that says stop, walk your bike, something like that. And of course, we would have to put some police officers out there, once the signs were first installed, to make sure that we stop the kids and let them know about the signs and help them get across the intersection. I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's completely feasible to have an officer out there every day for a half hour, getting these kids across. I just don't think that that's a reality. Not with staffing issues and calls for service, I just don't see that happening. And I don't want to promise that we can do that, because I don't realistically see that happening. I mean, there will be days when we can do that, but I think they'd be very few and far between, especially at that time of day when we have all the other schools getting out at about the same time.
Well, my suggestion on that was because I've seen both in patrol cars as well as on motorcycles sitting right at Encinal School. And I'm saying they have the time to be at the school. You've got a traffic light and a very good guard that crosses. So why not have the cars further down?
Well, I believe that was a temporary measure.
Again, the reason the officers are at Encinal School is they're trying to stop the people driving in the bike lanes. As you know, Encinal School's got huge backups in the afternoon, both northbound and eastbound, eastbound and westbound, people trying to get in. And what happens is that the eastbound traffic on Encinal comes down Encinal, and they don't want to wait, so they get in the bike lane and they pass everybody up in the bike lane. Which one's a violation, but two, it's also a safety issue. It's a huge safety issue, and that's what the officers are trying to combat, is to get people to stop doing that.
I have one other thing I neglected to mention. About 20 minutes before I left to come here, I got a return phone call from Renato Bailey from Menlo Park Bicycle or Transportation. And he writes here that the improvement on, they have a grant approved for Middlefield Road to widen the bike lanes. But it was approved by the council on March 24th of 2009. And it was to widen and I guess paint the stripe or whatever for these bike lanes on both sides of Middlefield, between Oak Grove and Encinal. And I'm just wondering why it hasn't happened if it's been 3 years since they approved this.
Who got the grant?
They said it was a One Bay Area grant, first funding cycle for a pedestrian and bicycle project that includes but is not limited to the following work. Middlefield Road. This improvement on Middlefield Road was recommended in conjunction with the Encinal School Safe Routes to School Plan, which was approved by council on March 24, 2009. This portion of Middlefield is owned and maintained by the town of Atherton. Restriping of portions of bike lanes on Middlefield Road between Oak Grove and Encinal School. Currently, there are portions of bike lanes on Middlefield that do not meet the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices requirements for minimum lane width of 4 feet. Therefore, it's proposed that these bike lanes be restriped to comply, and they have an estimated cost of $70,000.
So could
So
you,
I
could
have
you forward
copies.
that? Yeah,
I have
yeah.
copies for you.
Okay.
And like I say, I just got this before I
Do
came here.
you want to comment, Gordon?
Yeah, the project's in design right now, and we will want to work with Casey to make sure that we're meeting standards, but I think we're looking at probably putting that project out to bid within the next 3 or 4 months. I've only been here a little over a year, so I can't speak to delays from 2009 till recently, but we are planning to do that project, which would be in fact, we just met with Caltrans 2 weeks ago to have our review, and we're in the process now of submitting all of our paperwork for that project. So that should be going to council for request for going out to bid. I'm going to guess in the next couple of months.
And it really costs $70,000 just to change the paint on the ground?
The overall project's over $400,000 because we have to recoat the road with a seal, so we seal the old paint, and then we're putting thermoplastic on top.
Do you have to widen the pavement, or?
No, this is not including any pavement widening, although in meeting with Caltrans, if there is if there's a small section where we need a foot or so, we'll be able to do that, but it is not repaving the road.
So it might be useful to, if I don't know whether the committee can be involved in hearing what the plan really is in more detail as it develops.
Maybe put on a future agenda item.
you know, an agenda, I mean, future agenda.
Might I ask, and Chief, maybe you can help me with this. Sandy had mentioned that she had submitted this to the school's personnel traffic.
Well, I didn't submit a handout that I prepared for you, but I did have a flyer which I sent home with the school kids that were riding south at the Encinal Light. Because I bike every day round trip, and so do some other parents who escort their children. And several of the parents that received the handout sent emails, and those are in your handouts, and they're also on the disc.
Perfect. So I guess my question is to the chief. What can we do? Making contact with Encinal, saying, hey, you know, we've noticed this, one of the neighbors is concerned, provide them in essence with what we've received here today. Can we start working on some way to try to educate those kids? Because obviously we don't want something to happen. And I know that we do a lot of parking tickets over there for people that are parking on Littlefield Road, because we have a lot of that area and no parking. So I know that that's something we have been working on. Your thoughts on that?
Well, we've already been doing some of that with Encinal School, and it's an ongoing process, but just like in one of the slides that you presented, you said, I think it said promote unsafe behaviors. Well, we got parents out there riding against traffic, doing the same exact thing. That's troubling. You know, basically, we're trying to teach kids to do it right, which is why the officers over there at the corner top know about walking their bikes and what have you, and then dealing with adults driving in the bike lanes, so it's very problematic.
It's something that I know that has worked in some other jurisdictions, where we go out, we do heavy enforcement, we warn a whole bunch of people, and the word gets out, OMG, we can't do this, and parents start to get, especially the parents, they have there is no, I'm 14, I don't have knowledge of which direction to travel on a roadway. But we definitely send a message to the parents and the kids that we're going to start enforcing. We're concerned in your safety. Is there any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I've said this time and time again, we're looking at a situation here that's a poorly engineered roadway. It's not wide enough, the bike lanes aren't appropriate, and people are going around those things. So when we look at these issues, we address it from what we call the 3 E's, the traffic program management, education, enforcement, and engineering. Well, obviously the education piece is seriously lacking. The parents doing the same thing the kids are doing. And the engineering piece is lacking, so we're trying to put together a one-legged stool with enforcement only, with a finite number of police resources. A very, very difficult task. And the other piece is the dealing with juveniles in court on a traffic citation and all of that, creates a lot of issues.
Well, one point is riding with traffic, which is the right-hand side of the road. You've got car doors opening because cars park along Middlefield. You've got cars entering and leaving that section where they park. And it's usually in the afternoon when they pick up kids. Even though there's signage there, it still happens daily. And it's because of the carpool situation. You've got curves. I've taken my 9-year-old going with the traffic, and I tell you, my heart's in my throat, because the bike lane, you can see how wide the bike lane is right there next to the cars. And there are cars sporadically parked down Middlefield further along. And like I say, with all the interruptions and the narrowness of the path, it's really safer on the left side. I mean, on the east side.
Well, it especially safer on the path.
Exactly. And so all I'm saying is to help keep kids off the bike lane, if you raked away the leaves and made the path wider, kids don't have as much incentive to go up on the bike lane. And I think these are low-cost improvements, maintenance that can be done. I think, ask for volunteer. I'll volunteer. I'll get out there with a rake, and do the quarter mile, half mile. So I don't know if that's against the rules, the highway rules, that's all.
I think, yes?
I cycle my boys to Encinal School every day and have done for a number of years, and also to Laurel School. And I did a risk assessment in my mind as a parent as to wanting them to live as long as possible. I insist on them cycling. They will do it every day, and they have done so. To go south along Middlefield Road is so highly risky. It's just difficult for me to embrace the possibility of it. I do it as an adult by myself going home, having dropped the children at school, and I've been door jammed by cars opening their doors that are in the cycle lane so many times I can't begin to say. The physical separation is lacking on both sides, obviously. However, to ride inside the tree line on the other side of the road at least affords that much from the cars hitting the children or the children hitting the cars. Even going north towards Encinal from the Willows, cycling the children, they have to swerve out off the cycle path into enormously speeding traffic. And the natural instinctive result of a car coming out, even if it doesn't cross into the cycle pathway, is whoa, into the cars. And it's an accident, it's a death waiting to happen. My kids are well disciplined. I have an air horn. I keep them tight, but it's going to happen. I have picked a parent up off the middle of the road in the middle of Middlefield at that gate, myself personally, and I did the job. Forgive me, this is no slight on your department, sir, but I did the job of a traffic director until the ambulance and the police officers could arrive, at which point the police officers were so busy that I had to stay to assist a certain amount of time. So it's in our face, and I don't know if you counted the number of children in your survey that go up and down there every day, but the probability is enormous. Thank you.
I cannot represent my company, but I am the crossing guard there. Can you imagine every day when I go down there and I see an ambulance go after those, after the kids leave? I never know if someone's going to be hurt. Because if they go the right way, I'm not as worried. If they go that same path that they're supposed to go, it's like just waiting for something to happen. So please consider just widening it, smoothing it out, making it so that one east side area can be a path from Willow or however far to Marsh Road so everybody can be safe. Even the walkers, I know they don't like to run and walk in the mud. So I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you for doing what you do. Any other comments? Yes.
I'm Ellen Barton. I'm the newly hired CCAG Active Transportation Coordinator, so I just thought I would come and see. This is great to see. Wanted to say it's wonderful that this plan that you're doing and that the community is working together on this does seem like this topic, possibly is in the plan, which I hope that will be another opportunity to solve it. But I also, from my experience, do see some, in addition to what the good ideas that have come forward here, some possibilities for collaborative solutions on this route. And so it's great that there are people, and I feel moved to just specifically say how wonderful it is that there are so many active kids and parents that are on that route, even though there are all these hazards. That's the kind of thing that is, as this gentleman said, going to keep the kids alive, longer as healthy adults and the adults. So I just want to add the element that it's encouraging that there are some of these things happening, and it's of course of great concern to try and work together to find a new way to do it. But I do feel as though it would be great to see some innovative solutions, and I'm thinking European style solutions that may not be easy to get around here, but with the enthusiasm and the support that I see and the brilliant minds actually that I'm seeing up here, that it's possible that this could be a place to start. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? A number of us were at that meeting in Encinal where they were talking about Encinal problems, and I think one of the ones people talked about was just the traffic getting in and out of Encinal to drop kids off and pick them up. But the other one was, I think years ago, the Atherton started eliminating parking along Middlefield Road for the safety issues you described with bicyclists and so forth. And now, of course, all the volunteers and the parents are complaining they don't have any place to park, and why can't they park along Middlefield Road? So we have these competitive issues that we've got to deal with, and they're interjurisdictional. So we clearly need to be having conversations with the school about what are the best compromises to address all the issues. I'm wondering, and Gordon, there are a lot of really interesting ideas that Sandy has suggested here and that other people have suggested. Would it be possible to have Public Works sort of do a triage on these and come back to tell us which ones seem like they could be done without a lot of money and that might make some benefit, have some benefit, and then others, I mean, I personally am, I walk along the path between the trees and the wall a lot, and you know, through the years, Middlefield Road has been built up by about 2 or 3 feet above grade, just as they keep adding on and on and on. I live on the other side of the wall, and my wall is 2 or 3 feet taller on our side than it is on the Middlefield side. So the path is falling behind in getting built up, and there is pavement down there someplace, I think, under layers of dirt and trees that used to be paved. So another thing, as you've suggested, which seems to me, I mean, there's some cost involved, but and there's some tight spots there because I think when they put in the Encinal Light and PG&E in a couple places have put transformers and utility boxes that are tall blocking the path and making it narrower in places. So would have to deal with that. But I'm wondering if, and I don't know whether this is something that the Bicycle Master Plan Committee has looked at in any detail, but would it be possible to make that a combination bike and pedestrian pathway?
I think what you're talking about, the master plan is, in my terms, it's a magic marker on a map. What you're talking about is detailed engineering, where you go out, survey, determine in certain places, if it's just leaves on the side of the road, that's something we can have our maintenance crew go out and clear the leaves off. I expect it's going to be more grading, widening, putting in asphalt, and it's not just a matter of, we don't just throw a couple of shovelfuls of asphalt on. It's a major engineering project. But that's part of what the master plan does. You saw the $13 million compendium. When that comes to council, that's going to be council's prerogative to say, here's the priority, boom, boom, boom. And once council says, yes, we'd like to move forward with projects 1, 3, and 4, do preliminary engineering, come back with some cost estimates, then decide which ones are final engineering, and certainly we can go forward, and that would be exactly what we're planning to do. I will take the information on the maintenance, and if it's the existing pavement that is covered with vegetation, that's a relatively easier thing to do, even if it's taking the loader out there and scraping along the road. The fact that there's dirt on the side, that's not going to be an easy fix of just get a couple of loads of gravel, because we'd have to, and once we do something, we have to do it according to standards, or else we put the city in a situation of liability. So that's the process. We'll take the master plan, go to council, get the environmental work done on that, have council prioritize that, and give us direction as to which projects go forward in terms of engineering.
That being said, Gordon, can you also, when it does come back before council, make sure that we have the attachment related to this grant and the status thereof? And Chief, at the same time, not that educating the school, but maybe if we could approach the school and say, we're starting our education process, it may take some time, but we don't want to see anything happen, and our concerns related to traffic.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because every year, the Atherton Police Department has an all-schools meeting before school starts. We had one this year, I was there. We go over a variety of topics to include traffic. We offer to help the school administrators craft a letter to parents and do that education process. But we'll continue to do that. And then every year it's the same thing. We have a whole new group of parents coming to school and kids, and we start from ground zero. So we've done that every year. I have been the chief here, and they did it long before I arrived, because we have 9 schools. And so we have a lot of activity when school starts, and both in the morning and then in the afternoon when school lets out, so.
Thank you, Chief.
So, but there are the other things like putting up stop signs for bicycles on the path, encouraging the bikes to ride on the path, maybe with some signage or something, rather than ride the wrong way on the bicycle lane. Are those things that the town can just do, or?
We could do those with an engineering study. Again, we wouldn't put up a sign. I think, someone commented, putting up a stop, I think it was you, in fact, Mr. Chair, putting up a sign, like a stop sign. We put them up on Middlefield, but then we're probably encouraging or allowing more rear-end accidents.
No,
so we wouldn't just put a sign
I'm
up.
talking about a stop sign for bicycles.
I understand.
Yeah.
So yes, we can work with, with an engineering firm to say, here's the problem, please look at, and, so lower cost options, easier options, such as putting up, bike stops, walk through intersection, those things can be done more easily. So we don't just order the signs and put up poles. We want to have it done in accordance with the standard, or again, because we don't want to put the town in an adverse liability situation.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
How do we get something moving on that?
Well, I think that we've got things moving now, and I think that one of the things that staff would probably already do at this point is check with Public Works and make sure that we have no obstacle or obstructions in that bike path area. The issues of anything related to additional signage, that would have to be something Gordon would have to come back with it and say any suggestions and some cost factors related to that. It might be easier to do things related to bike path issues versus, for example, like you said, cross area, bike path, careful, coming, signs like that, they're in bike areas versus roadway areas. There's a little bit of a difference, and I'm sure it's more complex. So, Gordon can come back with some ideas.
Any other discussion?
I just have one suggestion. Sandy kindly offered to be among people who volunteer to periodically help clean or maintain the path. And I think that that idea of there being some organizer to organize parents or concerned citizens to, some Saturday afternoon or something like that, to periodically do that. I think that's a wonderful idea, especially because this town is so budget constrained. But it's possible that the town could help facilitate that type of thing.
Probably through the schools would be a better way to try to facilitate
Okay.
it.
Well, somebody ought to lead, because in the absence of leadership, people will